Well, welcome to my Whispering Heights Ministry YouTube channel, but more importantly, welcome to another year of life group at the Vineyard Church in Davenport. Looking forward to this year. If you were there last night for our meeting and you're listening again, well, thank you for that. And if you're listening for the first time, thank you, and we are certainly praying that God blesses you in your endeavors this coming year. I want to begin by just giving you some house cleaning information, and then get into a little deeper processes for us all. This is not going to be a long video, but I think it will be helpful. Well, with the year beginning, I want you to know that really nothing is changing in our processes and in what we do in the life group, except we're going to go deeper in a lot of ways. And that's going to be an exciting thing. So our liaisons are still going to be your liaisons. However, they're all involved in some new jobs for making this a better program. And so they're going to be very busy. There are starting new groups and helping people to take over those groups and become the leaders of those groups. We're hoping to start a number of new groups this year, and they're involved in that. They're still your liaisons, and you still should talk to them, and you should call them for help and guidance along the way. But I'm going to be taking the role also of coming to the small groups a lot more often and helping out all of our present leaders with where they're at, and helping us to grow and do some teaching to help us to become even more effective in the processes that we are a part of here with Life Group. So don't be afraid to see me show up at your meetings on occasion. Let all of the people in your group know how much we appreciate them and how much we appreciate you, the leader, and what a great job you're doing. And also give some guidance and some direction and some teaching on where we want to move as a church in the future. Also, we want to encourage everyone as we get started in this new year to take some time with the members of your group to go over some basic rules to help the group just thrive better. If you do not have a copy of those basic rules, make sure you see Judy or I, and we'll be happy to get those to you. Very important that everyone, especially when new people come in, I think it's good throughout the year, especially when new people come in, to go through the rules again. It just helps make everything run more the way you want it to run, more just run better all the way around as you go. Now, throughout this short video, I'm going to be asking you some questions that we would like you to take some time and write down some answers to and provide them back to me. This does a number of things for us. One is it gives you something to think about and help you to understand better where we're going and where we want things to go. But also it helps us to understand, that everybody is on the same page. So it is important that as you listen to this, that you fill out these little questions and send them back in to me, and that will just be a blessing to all of us. Thanks. The theme this year is taking the wild ride with Jesus, and it is a wild ride. And there's nothing new at all about being a part of a small group. Actually, you can go back to even before Jesus with the Jewish people. They had little small groups that they worked through. It was a big country, and with religiously, had a lot of great people that were leading the entire nation in their religious endeavors. But from a small point of view, 10 families with one leader was the way that they normally went. I mean, 10 families with a pastor. It's what we call them today. Back then they were called rabbis, and they were very learned men. And so they would meet together all the time. And then they had special events where, as a whole country, they would come together. And also many days on Saturdays, they would come together, just the whole groups. This is something that the church bought into right away. Small groups of people, not with a rabbi, but generally just members of the congregation. Sometimes we called them elders. They were maybe not the most learned people, but they sure loved God, and they sure had a love for their people. And they would meet together. And then on Sundays, whole congregations would come together. So you had that same kind of idea of a few people on a daily basis, getting to know one another, loving one another, taking care of one another, working with one another. And especially was important at that particular time because it was hard to be a Christian. People were trying to kill you. The church was not as it is in America today. Not at all. And it was difficult because you could get thrown in jail just simply from believing what you believe or talking about Jesus. And so they needed one another. And then on Sundays, whole congregations would go together and would have the reading of the Word and something, not everybody had a copy of the Bible. Most people did not. But there was the reading of the Word, and there was always communion, and this was a place where people began to find out more and more about Jesus and go back into their little small groups. And throughout the week, they didn't just meet once a week. They were together all the time because they needed one another, and that was a place of safety, of help. So we're going to stop right now and ask you to think about the first question and to write down an answer that you're going to put together and give back to us to help us along the way. The question is, what are some of the tips that you have used that you can share with us? What are some of your tips for helping your group to become a more engaged group? That early church was very engaged with one another. And then this year, we want to see our church, our groups become more and more not only engaging, but engaged with one another in all kinds of things of life. And in their, not only with regard to the church, but in our communities and with one another. What are some of the tips that you have found helpful for you helping your group to become more engaged? Once you're done with that, move on to the next part. Back to the early church for a minute. What a tough time that was for new Christians. Most of them, well, at the very beginning, all of them were Jewish people who have now taken on Jesus as their Messiah. What a difficult time it was for all of them to deal through such problems everywhere. One of the big problems that came up was a man that was called Saul of Tarsus. He later became someone we revere, we love, called the Apostle Paul. But Paul, before he knew Jesus, wanted to destroy Christianity. And people were afraid of him because he was always looking around for people to destroy, to put into prison. Remember, we said that that was a part of what the church had to deal with. Well, Paul was one of those, and he would kill many people as well if he could. He actually had the legal authority to find Christians and put them in prison. And so no wonder that was a difficult situation. Paul was involved in the murder of the very first Christian martyr named Stephen, a martyr. Paul was all into that. But then he met Jesus, and he was blind for 3 days. During that time, I believe, because he was a very man of great understanding from the Bible, from the Old Testament, I believe he put together in his mind who this Jesus really was. And when he met Jesus on that road, before he went blind, Jesus, he said, "Who are you, Lord?" And he says, "I'm Jesus, who you are you are persecuting." And then he went blind. And now he's told to go to a city, and he'll be told what to do. And he gets in the city, and then he does. He finds out, he meets the gentleman, he finds out what he's supposed to do, and he becomes a Christian, and he goes out there and he just starts preaching about how important Jesus is and how he's the Messiah. Can you imagine what that did for the Christian people? Just a couple of days ago, he was killing Christians. Now he's out there telling them, come to Jesus, Could you imagine how difficult that was for the entire city of Jewish people? That had to be really confusing. So much so that they ended up having to put Paul in a basket and hide him out so that he could leave the city. And it wasn't too long after that Paul, he continued doing the same things he was doing, and finally he got taken away to be put out in the wilderness for like 3 years. Much time he spent actually with Jesus during that time. And when he came back, he was the powerful, wonderful man that we enjoy reading his writings from the New Testament. But boy, he sure made a mess to start with. He sure made a mess to start with. So here's the second question, because in the church today, we go through difficult times. Maybe not quite having the Apostle Paul but bothering us, but hey, in my lifetime, I know in the Soviet Union, it was, you could be killed for being a Christian. Just have a Bible and find out what happens. Same thing's true in other parts of our country today. And we go through maybe not those kind of difficult times. Who knows that in the future we might not. But we all have difficult times. And you as a leader of a small group, I know you go through tough times. So here's the question. I want you to write down as many as you can think of. How many different some different good times and difficult times that you as a group have had to work through. Just write down some different things that have come, that have been good times and difficult times, and how you have worked together, how you have grown together in the midst of those difficulties. And then we'll get to our final question. Back to the Bible, now to Peter for just a minute. He had this vision. Must have been an interesting vision. He saw all these different animals, all around him. And the Lord said to him, kill and eat. And Peter said, kill and eat? I've never eaten anything that isn't kosher. You've got to be kidding, Lord. Why would I do such a thing? He had the vision a second time. The same thing came up again. The third time, the same thing came up. But Lord, I can't eat these things. They're not kosher. Why would I eat them? This is not the way that we should live. And Jesus said, don't call things that I have called holy as unholy. And it dawned on him. Jesus was showing him about how the Lord was bringing the worldwide vision of Jesus and salvation to Jews and Gentiles along, and how he was supposed to go and help the church begin to accept Gentiles into the church. And that was difficult because the Gentiles did not think like Jewish people. They were doing all kinds of things that were just socially unacceptable as far as they were concerned, and they needed help. They needed the help of the Holy Spirit, and they needed help of other people who were learning to help them figure out how to navigate through all of this so that they could do what the Lord had said, not to call those Gentiles that come to me as something. That was tough for them. Back in that time, Jewish people often said that Gentiles were created by God for the purpose of fueling the fires of hell. That's how horrible the distance was between Jew and Gentile. And now that all these Jewish Christians must accept the Gentiles into the church. So they got together with some of the elders, and they got together with the apostles, and they came up with a very, very great understanding of how the church of the Jews and how the church of the Gentiles can and must begin to work together. There's times when you as a small group leader are going to have some very difficult times that come along, and that you also have to work through some things. So you're going to need the gift of the Holy Spirit, and you're going to need the help of other people. So the third question is this: write down some different experiences that you've had as a group leader where you've needed the Holy Spirit and you've needed the help of other people to guide you through, and come up with great opportunities to see your group grow in the midst of troubled times. So we're back where we began, the doorway to a new year. A year that we want to see our groups grow. New groups are coming in. We have new opportunities to see the gospel grow and Christians grow with one another. It's a wild ride together with Jesus, a place to see us to become more engaged with Him, more engaged with one another, more engaged as a group, that small group, that little church within a church that meets at your home, where great things can and will take place. And then where we all get together on Sundays again as a whole group. It's been going on since the very beginning. This is a year we want to take it deeper than we ever have before. And that's one of the reasons why we're starting new groups with the help of the liaisons. And that's one of the reasons why I'm taking a much deeper place this year in visiting with the small groups and helping the small groups to grow deeper as leaders and as people, as a group who is very engaging in all we do. Actually, that's something our whole church is going to be working on this year. And thank you for joining me. I look forward to your exam, to the questions that I've written and what you have written as your answers. And I look forward to coming to your groups and seeing you there, and just being in awe of the great things you're doing, and maybe give you a few clues along the way to help become even greater leaders. Thanks again. Take care.